We're all dressed up and ready to go, man.
Speak for yourself. You're back. James Dean lookalike, Mike Riley. Today's November 16th, 2021. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Sundown Podcast. It is episode 530.
Yep, it is.
Because it seems like the sun's going down basically at 5:30 every single day, if not earlier. At Run Camp, it went down at like 4:30. It was insane. As much as we complain about like the late sunrise here, I feel like, you know, at certain times you're here in Chattanooga, when we were at Run Camp back in the Central Time Zone, it legit was pitch black at like 4:30. It felt like, and it was not fun. It made it seem like it was 9 o'clock at 7, which is usually how I feel anyway at 7. But still, it was kind of a.
So you were probably at home.
It was like probably my wheelhouse.
Bedtime 6:30.
6:30. Wind my way up. Go to sleep.
I know. I came back from Run Camp and it was pretty early actually, but I was getting unpacked and doing things around the house and kind of laid down for a minute on the couch and it was dark. I'm like,
what happened?
It was like 5 o'clock.
I know, it's insane. I do appreciate the early light. I will say, I do appreciate. Well, for me, I wake up when it's dark outside. Usually, you're pretty much a standard, sunlight man. But when I wake up, it's usually pitch black. So now, like, it's kind of nice to wake up and have a little bit of light come in, and I can walk Kona that's not in the pitch black, and start to get a workout in. It's not pitch black the entire run, which is what'll happen. Eventually here as we get back to the normal time stuff, which I still don't know why we do this time change things. It's the biggest racket. Is to just have
lobbying against this hardcore.
Oh, I'm sure there's a petition on Facebook to sign. Maybe that Facebook petition will be as powerful as the Ironman Wisconsin Facebook petition to move it back to September, because that seemed to work. So hey, if you guys can get back on that and petition us to get rid of this ridiculous time change, we'd appreciate it. And speaking of appreciation, we appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you. First time tuning in, welcome. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, so we appreciate you giving us our time today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, run specific podcasts. We do race recaps. We do race previews. We'll have on the very, very, very rare and occasional guest. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, what a variety of our athletes are going through. We both work with a very wide range of athletes all over the globe. Again, we get that question a lot, like, how is it working, with someone remotely? Well, that's basically all we do. It is 95% of our roster of athletes between all 5 coaches is out of state from each coach. And that's no different with us. So we have a wide range of athletes, from beginners who are just kind of getting in their first triathlon, people just doing running events, cycling only events, swim events, and obviously, we do work with a majority of our athletes are triathletes and doing anything from short course to long distance Ironman with a variety of levels. You got beginners all the way up to elite level amateurs that go to Kona frequently, and so we cover it all. And so that kind of gives us a general vibe of what people are going through, and not to mention ourselves. We're both still as coaches trying to figure things out, as athletes trying to figure things out, and most importantly, as humans, just trying to figure.
Talk to me.
Just trying to figure shit out. And oftentimes we'll also pop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right into that. A lot of awesome people in there. Yeah, buddy. I spent too much time in Hickman County this week. It got me a little bit of an accent. You picked it up at the Dollar General store.
I like that you knew the county.
It was straight. You didn't know the county? Hickman County, baby.
Some people are, hey, that's all the way over there in Hickman County.
Yeah, that's all the Hickman County.
What?
I only knew it because of the license plate. I mean, that's, but
okay.
good old Hickman County.
I just grew up. We never referenced, but I think up north
we're in
Wisconsin.
We're in Hamilton County.
I know, but we never, where do you live? Hamilton
County.
No, I live in Chattanooga or whatever.
Because it makes you sound a little bit further out. Right, in the green pastures and the acreage.
I think that is a country thing.
It is a country thing.
Sometimes the
we're over in we're in Brownville County. And you're like, where is that? And they're like, Minnesota. We're in downtown Minneapolis. And you're like, oh, why don't you just say that? But yeah, I think it is more of a country.
It might be Hennepin County.
And they're like, is that corporated or incorporated? And you have to go through that whole deal, which I don't even know what that means. But that's it. We obviously we cover it all.
Did you talk about the club?
I didn't. I'll let you handle that.
All right, we got the club program going again, and people are coming in, and after Run Camp, we've had a lot of people sign up recently, so bear with me. I'm catching up, and we're getting you set up, moving towards the next year, and that's what the club is basically a training plan for next year for you that goes up to your A race or into November or whatever. We're not like super strict on that. We kind of get you going and then lay out your year for you. And there's a lot of bonus in that.
A lot of bonus. Get ready. Get
takes
prepared.
away a lot of decision making. But no, I'm in there kind of keeping an eye on things. It's way different than just buying a plan. I'll look at where you're at, and we'll start there and make sure you can handle everything in the progressions, and then we'll lay out the plan as it goes and get you, you know, all set up for your A race. And we had, I don't know, almost 30 people do Ironman this year in the club, and I think about 40 or 50 halves. So it was a successful season, I thought, and you know, hundreds of Olympics and sprint triathlons and stuff like half marathons. And so anything's good, except I would not, like, if your main thing is a marathon or an ultra run, I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah,
to be honest.
that kind of stuff needs, I mean, that's just running. Like I had someone yesterday ask if we could do a plan for a 55K, and I said no. You know, and I'm sure you can buy a lot of, you know, plans online that will go marathon or beyond, but I've never written one. We don't sell one for a reason. It's not because, you know, we're terrible businessmen, even though we maybe are. It's because it's too much risk, right? It's too much risk to write running is just so load bearing that you have to fine tune and be just on it, or bad things can happen. So we don't do anything over half marathon as just like a straight plan. You need something more of the customized area.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so that's basically it. We got the club, and then the club plus is quarterly adjustment. So if you fall behind because of life or injury or anything like that, I'll go in every quarter and kind of catch you back up and put you back in the right place. So there's those two options, plus the club and hub experience, which is basically the club plus a hub visit in here, personalized coaching and swim analysis and bike fit and bike analysis and all that stuff, bike testing or run test, whatever. We just hang out for half a day or whatever in here and give you a couple nights stay in our beautiful new condo.
Yeah, that's a townhome, 4 beds,
townhome,
3 baths.
Yeah.
But yeah, go see it. And if you want to more info on that, you can always go to our website. It's got everything we do and everything we have to offer right now. It's c26triathlon.com, and all that can be found under the coaching tab.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have a laundry list of things you want to go over today.
Yeah, it's huge.
You've been inspired, and the flame has been ignited from Run Camp, and you have a new clear path and direction for today. And I'll give you the floor and let me know when you're ready.
All right. So when it never changes. When you leave Run Camp, you're always about, you know, we all get in this sport to be better at triathlon and hopefully better people and just feel better and be in better shape and things like that. But it never ceases to amaze me how I think just the connection and community piece always wins. And I think not only that, when you're in those situations, when you put yourself in those situations with supportive people and like-minded people, you can do more than you think you can. And, you know, I'm reminded, I mean, because since Chattanooga, I really hardly did much of anything. I mean, I was trying to stay running a little bit here and there, but I never ran more than an hour probably. And we go out there that day and we put together like brutal half marathon.
Dude. I keep thinking
25 or 2,600 feet of elevation in a half marathon.
Yeah.
On rocks and mud.
Yeah. The smoothest thing you run on is the insane incline on the gravel going up to the gate. Yeah, that's about it. Everything else is dirt and rocks.
Yeah. And I mean, it just went well, I think, for most people. And I think I wasn't alone. I don't think anyone else was really, not many were probably really trained up to do that sort of a weekend, but just the, you know, support system and, you know, encouragement and belief system. I think it's just like we've got so much more in us, I think. And I just find that interesting because when you're training and most people have the probably desire to be cautiously overtrained, you know, like to know for sure. We always hear about it. People have to do, you know, the 7-hour ride and then the 22-mile run back to back or whatever. And we just never appreciate the long-term effects of the fatigue and just the consistency. But my point is, I guess, that we're amazing creatures, really, and like to be able to do something in a smart way. I think, you know, what we did is a lot of it was, you know, some of those hills you just had to hike or whatever. So that was the hardest part a lot of times, is going up some of these steep hills. So it's a really good workout, But when you get done with something like that and you feel good, like I felt really good when we got done. And that was a brutal run.
It was a brutal run.
You know, maybe not as brutal as Ironman Chat for me, but you know,
it was also half as long.
It was half as long.
But no, there's
whatever. But you know, what I mean.
There's a lot of. I mean, you said a lot of things that I was thinking too, and I think it's a great. There's a lot of great reminders of what happens at run camp, and when people go and do things like they take themselves out of their element, they don't have a race on the calendar. I think the biggest thing that I was reminded of is how grateful you should be to feel fit and healthy.
Yeah.
And just to be able to do something like that. And I think it also shines a huge light on the benefits of just being consistent on a year-round basis, right? And that's something, it kind of plays with like the direction I wanted to go to today, which is end of October, November is what I call yo-yo season. People go all in, you know, that just finished the season, right? And they're like, all right, I had this great race. You know, whether you had a great race or a bad race, it's time to go all in. Even though you just went through not many of you, not just a year training cycle, but a lot of you just went through a 2-year training cycle. Mm-hmm. The heaviness of that, not the burden it's per se, but like just the specific date on the calendar of 2 years for maybe even people longer. It was just an enormous amount of time. And so you had either a bad race, and so you want to, like, you know, you're ready to have revenge, you're ready to change up your diet, you're ready to change up your training, you're ready to it's all about change, right? This is always a season of change. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, obviously, it's all about change. What can I do differently? And what happens is you see it every year. As a coach, you see it every single season. You see people who want to just take and just do nothing because they had a great race, right? You know, or they had a bad race. So they're like, I nailed it, I'll just figure it out later. And then they just don't do anything, right? Which is, you know, for a period of time, you need to do that. But then the longer you're in that kind of phase, the harder it is to get out. Then you have people who go all in the other way. It's like, you know, I'm ready to get back to structured training. Like, you know, I need it now. I have all these goals I want for next year. I set, you know, all my expectations and my goals. I want to do this. I'm going to go sub this. I'm going to place this in my category. That needs to happen right now. And it may be sustainable for like a week. And then they come back with, you know what, I don't think I was ready to go all in yet. And you're like, yeah, I know. That's why we generally give, you know, a huge amount of time off after these big events, and why we offer so much flexibility this time of year. We're about to hop into December, and we'll have our usual December rules, which is kind of like, you know, titled, you know, unstructured structure. But you need time off because again, it just goes back to, on the flip side, I got off a call with a guy who did Ironman Florida, and towards the end of the call, he was like, you know, I just wanted to tell you something. I know you probably take a lot of flack for the run philosophy that you guys have in terms of not running a bunch of, you know, 20 and 22 milers and training like open marathoners. And I was super skeptical. I've run, you know, probably 40,000 miles in my life, and I was super skeptical when we started. He was like, I felt better in that marathon at Ironman Florida than I did in an open marathon. He's like, you probably, you know, take a lot of flack for not, you know, doing all those extra mileage, but I just want to tell you that, you know, that it worked. I said, I get it. You know, the proof's in the pudding. If you haven't tasted the pudding yet, then you might not know, you know, you might be a little skeptical, but there is this certain, I think, appreciation that we should all have. And again, this goes back to feeling fit and healthy, of being grateful that we can sustain a certain level of just overall fitness and health without having to go all into an extreme. And that's a huge red flag as a coach, as an athlete, as a person, when we go on extremes one way or the other. It is a sign of I don't want to say uncertainty maybe, but that you're maybe you are. You're very uncertain. You're not confident in the direction you're going. So you're going all in to probably overcompensate with the fact that you don't really know, right, what's going on. And again, everybody at Run Camp, we had a guy there who was like, yeah, this is the most mileage I've ran since 2004. Right. You know, and even looked at myself, like I, you know, got back to doing some running, and I was like, man, like I felt pretty good. Like, you know, doing that. And again, like a really difficult course we did the very last day, but you get out of your head, you're around good people, you get positive energy. It's like, I think it's the most simple example of how life should be in a vacuum, right? When we're put away from, our phone as much and work and so many hard obligations and responsibilities and obstacles and the stress of life. And we kind of get our own little bubble, for 4 or 5 days where all we got to do is wake up, have meaningful conversations, connect and talk with people that, provide us positive energy, go outside and do things that make us feel good by also challenging us and being able to express fitness. We do things that challenge us, right? We don't stay comfortable, and we do things that are fun, right? We did some events with the team that weren't run focused. They weren't triathlon focused. They were just kind of, hey, let's smile and have fun and have some competition and laugh. And we did that. And it's all the things you need in life that when we go back to regular life, we forget. And I think it just seeps over into it more and provides more negative energy than positive outcomes in training and in life.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us know maybe what's missing in our training or in life or whatever. And then, but I love what you're talking about, the yo-yo stuff, because when people get done with a race and they know that, man, I should have been, you get to a point in training, I guess, where, I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but sometimes when I get deep into training, I'm like, yeah, I know I feel good. I know I can do it. I'm at a point where I'm not nervous or anything like that, but I know I missed some steps. And I think that's what this time of year is, Heather, one of our athletes, she's been doing a lot of strength training and she's back into that. So what we've been doing is all kind of short, easy stuff around it just to get blood flow, kind of more like recovery, triathlon recovery stuff than anything. But I think this is a really great time of year. I think about it for me to build that strength, because we talk about training to the point to train like you need to train. And I think so many of us just get to, the end of, it's almost like an ether spot in our running where we just don't have the strength to go any further or faster. So I think we really need to all step back sometimes and do things like, maybe this is a great time to get into a habit of doing lunges around the house or doing, body squats and, core work and things like that while you're watching TV, because I think those things go so far and we just overlook them because we're always thinking about run volume and run distance and mileage and all this other crap. And then you get deep into the season, you feel like, yeah, I feel strong, but I feel like I feel a little bit weak too in the same time. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's all about, and I think that's what I love about Run Camp, is because we are doing such tough run course that you kind of stop looking at your watch for one, because the pace becomes a little bit irrelevant. Yeah. I mean, other than on some of the flat areas and kind of like what I found myself doing was really having a better discovery of my zones. It was just sort of like an experiment in, all right, you got a long way to go. You got a long, tough course to go. So how are you going to handle this? And I think that's why it felt so good, because a lot of it was hard climbing, but it forced you to sort of stay within yourself or you're going to get eaten alive. Mm-hmm. And I think that those types, that's why I've always loved hills for that reason, because it turns into, I can't do this very fast, so it's just more about the work and appreciating how that feels and what it's doing to your body.
It's so, again, it goes back to so much of the outside noise that we, fully acknowledge that we add into our life on purpose, when it comes to training, and we do it willfully. That's just too much. It's overkill, right? In order to really seek and to improve in running and in riding and even swimming. And again, that's why running and swimming are so wonderful. Even but riding your bike, it's just at their core, there are things that can set you free without having to add. They're just pure, right? They're just very pure. You don't have to have a Garmin watch or a foot pod or a power meter or, a pace, displaying on your goggles. You don't, all that extra stuff is usually what gets in the way, because it's window dressing, right? It's just sauce, right? And that's remember when I used to work at the Cheesecake Factory back in the day, one of the guys that was training me he was like, listen, man, he was like, the food's pretty good here, but 95% of it's the sauce. He was like, he was like true, really true good food doesn't need a bunch of shit added to it. You know, it doesn't need ketchup and ranch and marinara sauce and all these kind of extra things, you know, to make it's just at its purest, rawest form. It's just really, really, really good food. And we just tend to we've become a society and just the type of people, I think, just overkill and overdoing it has become the norm. You work too much, you're on your phone too much, you spend too much, you run too much. It's all about doing it too much. And whether it's a form of addiction, which I believe it is, or whether it's a form of feeling inadequate. So the more I do, the better I think I will feel in terms of overdoing things and crossing it off my list. And you said it, I love what you said about, you know, that's why hills are so great. It's because it does, like pace becomes irrelevant, right? Like that's why I love trail running so much in these camps, is because, you know, to me, the time goes by really, really fast, but the miles go by very, very slow because that's why you have to kind of disassociate from speed, but it's still about effort, right? And we talk about this a lot when it comes to cycling. Like, you know, people go out and hammer a 5-hour ride, you know, or go out and ride for 5 hours and they cover 100 miles in a group. And it's like, oh, look how fast I went. Look, and then you got a guy who went for 5 hours alone and climbed, you know, 4,500 feet of climbing, you know, but only got like, you know, 82 miles. You know, most people are going to look at the ride that was 100 miles because it was a longer distance and it was at faster speed and say, oh, that person's in a much better shape. You know, they did much better. On the surface, that's not true, right? If you want to dig down and dig deep of what may or may not be better, it's not that simple, right? And it's not an apples to apples comparison. And this is, again, like the best time of year to strip all of that away and to detach from that, because that is why people yo-yo, is because they go all in. And I like to compare it to, like, basically from, let's say your season ends in October. It's like your season should be like boiling a pot of water, right? November to October to December, even like early January, should be about taking your pot, cleaning it, putting in the dishwasher, you know, making sure it's all good to go, making sure it's in good shape, checking your burners. Come January, put your pot back on the stove, fill it up with water, and then slowly turn the heat on low. Doesn't look like anything's happening. Doesn't look like the water's getting hotter. Doesn't look like really anything's going on. And the urge is going to be, I want to see something happen. I'm going to crank it up to high and watch this baby boil. You know, I want to be able to see everything that's happening. And that's kind of like the train phase of the train to train that you want to train. And then slowly, you know, let's say your A race is in, like, you know, September, August. And then slowly, you know, as, you know, February, March, April, May hit, kind of crank it up to medium. But the amount of time it takes the water to heat up to get ready to boil is so much less than going from stove is off to stove medium, because you're already kind of simmering like at a low. You just can't see it. And then when peak phase comes, you're ready to kind of like blow the roof off, crank that baby to high. And again, the amount of time it's going to take you to go from boiling or not boiling to boiling is going to be so much shorter because you're already warm. You've already put in the time. It may not have been flashy. It may not have been overflowing. Everybody can see it. I mean, you might not be able to see it. It's just a gigantic level of restraint and trust to know that you have to wait and wait and wait. Because if you go all in, what's going to happen? And another great example. So you go on January, you put your water in, because you only have so much water to put in a year. We always talk about matches to burn every year. You fill up the water, you crank it up to high, you're ready to go, baby. Boom, boiling water. What happens? Overflows, right? Evaporates. It's gone. So come February, when you're burnt out, you're going to look back and you're going to think, oh, shit, I don't have that much water to boil anymore. I'm kind of burnt out. I lost some time. I don't really have what. Then you go back to boil it again. It might burn quicker, and then it's going to go out quicker. And then by the time you get to the point of year where it's really going to matter, to where that raging boil is going to bring you to the race in the best shape with all the water you need, it's hottest and ready to go, and you're exploding with fitness, you can either have it all or you can have less, because you've approached your year in a different way. And like, I truly believe that, and this has been one of, if not the most successful year we've ever had as coaches, with athletes achieving just a number of things. I think obviously the majority of the credit goes to the athletes, because they're insanely, you know, talented and awesome and amazing people. But I go back to last December in January, where you tell type A athletes that are motivated and somewhat addicted to training that it's time to rejuvenate. it's time to recharge, because you can't do this 12 months out of the year. You can't do it week in and week out. If you really want to be great, you have to set yourself up from start to finish to be great. You can't try to be on 24/7. Like I joked with an athlete who lives in Canada, and they're like, they have all these huge aspirations for this next year. And she's been on fire and she's just psyched up, doing all these things. And over the weekend when we were gone, she's like, I missed a workout. I'm trying not to beat myself up about it. I think I'm going to change. I said, I don't know why you're asking me. I said, you missed a workout. This season's over. We're done. 2022 is over. Like it's
done deal.
It's done. We're never going to reach your potential because you missed a day. Get back to me in 2023 and we'll get back to work. I was joking, obviously, and being sarcastic, but I was like, doesn't matter, right? It just literally doesn't matter. And that's a huge part, as you know, of coaching, is like not just slowing people down on paper, right? And what they're doing and the distance they're trying to cover, the intensity they try to manage, week in and week out all year long. It's reframing and reshaping their mindset and their approach and perspective training, which is you try to rein them in. And it's not about, and I think a lot of coaches are different this way. It's we don't want to make you too serious about training and we want you to be serious about life, right? And all the things that go into that. But when it comes to racing and training and developing and reaching goals, it should be fun. And you need to do it in a fun and attainable and sustainable way, because the burnout rate is crazy high in all things in life, especially when you go all in. You see yo-yo dieting, stuff like that. So, that's a huge, when you remove so much from your life, or you try to add so many things in, you just kind of end up going the other direction. So I think that's just a huge piece of the puzzle, that if you're struggling with the all in, all out mentality, hey, maybe let's find a happy medium, to where your average is the medium, and you're getting the pot out. Get your pot out. Okay. Get your pot out. Get your pot. Not your weed, but your pot.
Well, you said a lot of things there that resonate with me. The boiling water, when you said that, I was trying to describe this earlier, and I think that it settled for me when you were saying how if you turn that heat up too high, your water's evaporating or falling over the top. But that's what I meant, is I think a lot of us end up training on fumes many times throughout the year, depending on whatever. And I think your analogy for the year there, the train to train to train, can also be applied to workouts. So, we want to get into today's workout and just get into it. But I think we need to clean the pots and, set the stove before ideally, right? In my mind, because this becomes a mindful thing at that point, because I think the society is so not mindful about anything. We get up, we're late for work, we're doing, women are talking about doing makeup in the car and all this kind of stuff. There's no being in the moment. It's always like, I got to be there now. And so
there's no slowdown in life.
Right. So what's wrong with, cleaning the pot before you go out for a 30-minute run with it, whatever, that may be just some 5 minutes. That's what I tell athletes all the time. If I got a 30-minute run, I'd rather have you kind of either walk or warm up or do something that prepares you for that run and take 5 minutes off the total. If it's a time issue, because I've noticed, and I think that's what I'm kind of getting at with this overall perspective, is like, this is the time of year to slowly, get into training and do it the right way and be mindful about it. Because if you just kind of go through the whole year, I got a 30-minute run tomorrow, I'm just going to do it. But without really kind of thinking about the purpose of it, or thinking about what you could do to be better prepared for it. And, I think back to this weekend, and I did that whenever we went out during the week. I would just wake up, have a cup of coffee, and go and do our 30-minute run. And I just wasn't feeling that great. But the morning and we had that race, I got up a little bit earlier, plenty of time to kind of, wake up and have my body moving. But I did like 10 minutes of sort of these yoga postures and kind of warmed up and got my body in a place where it felt ready to go. I didn't go out of the gate hot still, but it was still that simmer and then hit the boil. So I really think that we can do that more in our daily lives. It's just such a rush all the time. And there's I got to squeeze this workout in, but be mindful of the first, how many people get on the bike and, you have your target, your FTP or whatever. And it's like, people can't not hit that within the first, 10 minutes or something. Is like, my thinking is that's one of the hardest things to do is hold back when it's that warm up period. It's that simmer that we need to really pay attention to and give respect throughout the year. Your body may not be ready to go blast.
It shouldn't be, right? And that's a huge misconception that social media and marketing puts, is that you should be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single week out of the year. Like you should be on. You should be improving. You should be going all in. There's sleep when you're dead. That's like what? Like that? Like none of that makes any sense, right?
Because you don't appreciate anything.
Well, because you also can't accomplish anything because you're literally burning the match at every end all the time to light on fire like the smallest candle known to man. Like you're not doing it. You're barely getting by, and it's so much of a rush world. Like people do that in swims all the time. And I got 2,000 yards a day, and it's broken up into rest and doing these specific things. Like I just didn't feel like it's what to swim straight through. To them, rushing through was the better option, not because listen, and it's very Buddhist, Buddhism type, monk. It's like the process is in the details, the smallest part of the detail, right? That you're being more successful and more mindful and more productive by executing your active recovery or your zone 1, zone 2, right, at the prescribed effort or even below it, than you are by doing it over, right? By going too hard. But society doesn't, it's in the way the athletes are kind of bred and made now and even marketed to, it's all about how fast, how hard, how, am I getting the fastest segment or the fastest run split or the king of the mountain or the local legend? And it's like you have all these things that are supposed to produce, these very, very minor and inconsequential wins every day, so-called, quote unquote wins that usually remove you or make you farther away from your ultimate win, right? And it seems like every day, every now and then, we need these extravagant wins in training when the win is just kind of doing what you're supposed to do, right? Day to day. And I love what you said about the water and the boiling thing through a workout is a great example for one of the workouts we do is you do 10 1-minute all out intervals with a minute rest in between. A lot of people, the first time they do it, will go that first 1 minute and go all out and just blow it all away. And then, then instead of seeing, stairs that go up, in your graph, when you analyze it, it's stairs that go down. They way too hard. They held on for a minute. They had a couple down ones, or it doesn't even look like a stair step. It just kind of looks like, very erratic. I always approach it and with all last intervals is I really just don't care how fast my first interval is. I care about how good and how powerful my last interval is. Mm-hmm. And everything that I do should be focused on fueling, hydrating, pacing, breathe, all those things. How do I want to end it? Do I end it really, really well? But it takes, again, so much patience and restraint to not go all in and to know that what you're doing is enough. Because I do think that's also a huge problem is that we're always worried that we don't have enough. We're not doing enough. We aren't going to be enough. We're not going to be fast enough. We're not going to improve enough. So the answer is always faster, harder, more. And then all that does is end up kind of putting you in the wrong direction, or it burns you out to such a degree that you yo-yo back the other way to where you just basically stop because you can't see improvement. So you quit. But there's just this period of time. And again, it's in a very important, period of time for an athlete to be flexible and but it's not just about flexibility. It's about learning how to approach your day-to-day week, your month after month, in your season in a mindful manner that is about the end goal, not about the goal today, right? To make that your ultimate goal, because that's what's going to validate you and make you feel better about the end goal. It's hard. It's a huge process. It's a huge undertaking, I think, for most athletes to kind of wrap their brain around that. And very similar to, an athlete who might get up to running 35, 40, 45, 50 miles a week, but never does that long, that one clicker, that one 20, 22, 24 miler to give them that one day of confidence. People tend to need that. Even if they don't run anymore the rest of the week because they're so worn out, they need that more than they can wrap their brains around why the 40 to 45, 50 miles in a week accumulated is better, right? And it allows for a better race and a better marathon or open half marathon.
We've talked about this before, but sometimes when I used to swim, or even now, and I have maybe a 4,000 yard on the docket, and I get to 3, and I'm like, man, I feel pretty good right now, but I feel really good actually. And I think, sometimes you just don't feel like swimming anymore or whatever, and you get out and I know that I had 4 in me, and I feel like that's the same way kind of for runs too or something. How many times have you gone out and done everything appropriately? Maybe you were kind of warmed up, it was whatever, and you got through a run and, you slowly got a little faster, you felt a little stronger, and then you got to the end and you're like, man, I was just starting to feel real, real good. And then how hard it is for most people to walk away from that and be like, it's great. That's what you should feel like.
Exactly.
I feel really, really good right now.
Bad?
Why do I want to tip that over and make myself feel like ass just because I really need to go out and run a few more miles, or I want to do that just to show who? You can do it. You're feeling really, really good. Maybe you're hitting the mile 4 or 5 because that's kind of how it works sometimes, especially in Ironman training. You don't even start feeling good till you're an hour in a lot of times. But that's a good thing. It's just like, how do we?
Because listen, no one markets. It's everything, right? It's like when you advertise for a coaching service or a workout at the gym or a piece of equipment, rarely ever is it, you'll walk away from this feeling energized, but still with something left in the tank. It's all about destruction and beating you down and beating yesterday and, grit it, rise and grind. And, it's like, that sounds like a lot of suffering, like in a world where we're already kind of suffering a lot in a lot of areas. Why do I need to add to that every single day? Like, why? I don't understand that.
It's a personal beatdown mentality.
Yes, it is.
We feel like we have to feel pain or something.
We feel like in order to, and again, no pain, no gain. Like it goes back to that like ridiculous quotes like no pain, no gain. Well, if you're doing it right, 80-85% of the time, you should not feel pain, right? You should be doing it like re-energizing, easy, aerobic, and like that, like those things are what benefit you. But again, and we become, again, so addicted to the go hard or go home or, all these like that, like none of that is sustainable. It's like,
it's not sustainable. You should do it sometimes, but
not
all the time.
Not all the time, right? And you shouldn't throw up after a workout. You shouldn't want to pass out. Like those aren't like pats on the back. Like if you get done with the workout and you're lying on the floor and you're like, God, I crushed it. I can't barely move. It wasn't sorry, it wasn't that good. You probably overdid it. It's like you're getting the reverse effect. You probably did more damage the next 2 days than the positive you got out of this day. And it's just not, again, people don't ever look at that. They don't market it. It's not attractive. It's like, it's hard to wrap your brain around that being a level of improvement. It's more about the risk, because we become addicted to the risk and the high reward or the high loss, not the hurry slowly, right? Or the slow burn that just ends up getting somewhere and it does what it needs to do. It's not flashy. It's like people would rather crash and burn, in a marvelous way, or succeed in a marvelous way than they would slowly and carefully and calculated reach to the point to where they're healthy, they're fit, they're happy, and they have a legit shot to achieve their wildest dreams and to crush their goals. Like, people would rather go the opposite way. And I think it's a combination of addictive nature of, again, like wanting to just, you're addicted to some level of pain and discomfort, and that's the only way people wrap their brains around improvement. And I think it's a combination of that and just kind of self-sabotage. It's like, because I think people really know intrinsically, like, I'm not a patient, slow burn kind of person. I just got to go all in and just hope for the best, right? Just hope that I can hang on just long enough to where it's going to do me good in a race, or hang on just long enough to where when I do burn out, at least I can maybe play catch up, and at least I'll still have some fitness left. And if they don't, then they just kind of go, back to doing nothing, and it takes an enormous amount of mindfulness. And we mentioned this a lot, is that, the most successful athletes that we have, again, not by how fast they are, how incredible they place in races, but just the ones who get the most out of what they have to accomplish in like their availability, where they are in their athlete life cycle, their goals, are the ones that are just straight up even. They are unspectacularly spectacular in that they just do all the small things right. They go for their easy run, super easy. They're consistent. They do all the small things. They take time off when they need to. They don't stress and fret about the smallest, most inconsequential thing. They just have a good perspective of getting work in and understanding of that it's a long, long line to get to where you want to go. And it might not even happen this month or in 6 months or a year, but as long as they stay on that path, they have a much better shot of getting there than they have of crashing and burning and never getting there, or getting back on the horse after they do crash and burn and having to basically start over from scratch and end up being much, much farther away than they had intended to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about what Ironman racing is, and it's really about being steady, like you said, like this idea of training yourself to just be steady over the course of a long time. And it's that microcosm, but can you be in your zone 2 run today, just hold it in there, and then do the things so it's basically you're practicing getting better at being steady more than anything, in a way. And that's how you want to race. You want to be able to sustain. You want to be, because it's not about flying down the road for the last half of the marathon or whatever. It's about just being able to find a place where you can hold it. And not only that, being trained enough in your mind to understand what that means. Sometimes I use these drumming analogies. When I started drumming, what did I want to do? I wanted to play the song like that day.
Exactly.
I had no tools. I had to work on these sticking drills for months, and then, practice parts of the song and whatever it is. And then you can kind of get to the point, but we have this instant gratification thing. And when you're talking about staying steady, and I listened to this really great interview with this woman who wrote Dopamine Nation. And you hear this term homeostasis, and I kind of understand it, whatever. She gave a really great analogy to explain it in a way that just clarified it for me. And she was a teeter-totter or seesaw or whatever you want to call it. She says pain's on one end, because she said pain and pleasure is really located in the same part of your brain. And it's just so one inverse reaction sends the other one down or up or whatever. You push on the pleasure pedal and it sends the pain higher afterwards. And she said the whole goal in life in a way is to stay in homeostasis, because it's
keep them even.
Keep it all even, because they have an inverse reaction to each other. So like when we first start Ironman training or whatever, you get such a high from these runs and you want that high back. It's just like addiction. It really is addiction. She said that's mainly what she deals with. But you get such a high that you want to always try and get that back. So I think that's why we have a tendency to, push ourselves into the ground or whatever. But the real goal should be to keep it kind of even over time, because what happens is then the more pain you create, the more pain kind of gives you pleasure too. And it's a weird thing. So I think you need, but I found the most interesting thing she said about it was that, that's a deep-rooted human, I guess, safety system or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's this thing that kind of helped people hunt and like survive, and it's that type of primal thing. But she said that system is playing a cruel joke on our humanity in the modern age, because pleasure is so easy to get and you don't have to work for it. And we're always reaching for, like, well, I want a hit of this or that, and over time the pain, she called them pain gremlins, I guess. More and more pain gremlins start getting on the other side of the seesaw, and it gets harder and harder to find back to their homeostasis. And that's when we keep getting deeper and deeper into like mental pain. A lot of times is that we keep going to seek that thing, but we can't get as high on the pleasure return. And then the weight on the other side gets heavier and heavier, and you can't get it even. And she said one of the biggest secrets to that was whenever you feel a desire, she said, just sit on it for 20 minutes. And then, like she said, a pain gremlin will get off. Mm-hmm. It just naturally happens, but it's so difficult because we all want that cookie right now. But if you kind of just like, you know, abstain for a minute, or you pull back and you run, or whatever the case may be, I think those are all really interesting ways to look at it.
Yeah, because right now, the day we live in, like, you can do anything you want to right this very minute, right? Like, everything is
on humanity.
It is. It's like everything is at the touch of a finger. You don't like, and like you said about learning how to play drums. It's like, you know, I'm just starting triathlon. You know, I want to qualify for Kona next year. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is gonna take a minute. You know, it's like, but that's also like you said, like, we've been fooled into thinking that everything happens quicker, right? Like, just because things are more readily available because of technology and how things are made now, and just the availability of like so many things, is we've become, you know, faked out. And it's just an illusion that all these things in life, because everything else has been, you know, put on to high speed, that other things in life are also high speed. You know, like, you should be able to achieve everything in 2 seconds. You should be able to, you know, find your purpose in life in 2 seconds. You should be able to retire in 2 seconds. You should have your portfolio built up to this in 5 by the time you're this age. It's like, everything is shrunk, right? Everything's like gone down to, like, you know, the average person should have the financial means to retire at age, like, you know, 65. And like the last few years, it's been like at 60, at 55, at 50. You know, it's like, you should be able to do all these things a lot quicker because of how easy everything else seems to be. But you're right. It's like, you don't have to work as hard for a lot of these things. It's just a click of a button. You ain't doing a damn thing, right? It's like signing up for an Ironman race. The easiest thing you're going to do is click the register button and drop a hunch. You know, like, that's literally the easiest thing you're going to do. It's the rest of it that takes so long. And that's why you have to be patient if you're in the sport, to like rush through things and get out. I don't understand the point, right? Because you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to grow. You're just going to kind of grind your way through and rush away. And like, anytime you rush through anything, you miss so much, right? It's like, example, like when we go out and flag the course, you know, for these runs, we have to walk and we stop and look around and put flags and mark off. You notice so much more about the area and the terrain and the, you know, the lake and the creek, the views you can get
I bet.
when you're walking and stopping and looking at, versus when we're running through it, you know, because we're rushing. Like, all we care about is moving through this quickly, and the effort that we're given, not, holy crap, like, we're in the middle of, like, you know, nowhere. That's, you know, a lot of this stuff is like, you know, basically untouched, and we're just flying by, you know, like, you know, and missing out doing these fun things. It just, that's so much about, it's just about getting it done. Everything we do is rush. I just wanted to get the workout over with. So I did this and did that. I cut the warm up, you know, short, and got really into it because I really want to get in this. Like, the restraint is, and that's like when you have to really compliment people when they take days off. Like, dude, nice work. Like, I appreciate that. Like, that you did a really, really good. You're growing, you're maturing, right? It shows maturity, right? That you can recognize that, or that you did an Ironman this year and you recognize that, you know what? I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. I learned a lot. You know, it was a stretch. You know, but I got so much fitter. It you know, made me a better person. But next year, it's just not for me. You know, I got too much on my plate. Dude, good for you. Like, to just have that kind of like perspective and introspection to kind of recognize its place in your life, that you still want to do it and you still want to do shorter events and stay fit and make yourself better. But most people don't do that. Once they're hooked, they're hooked. They hop on the addiction train. They're like, if I did one this year and I felt this good, I got to do at least 1 or 2 next year. You know, right? To keep that Ironman buzz, to kind of get your fix. It's not about, oh, well, you know, I think I'll do less next year, right? No one really ever says that. It's not about doing less. It's about more. And it's directly, you know, we always joke about picking up athletes, and we click on their Training Peaks profile and you see, you know, 8 different training plans uploaded, and you have like, you have 9 workouts on Tuesday. What does that mean? You know, they have like, you know, 9 plans uploaded that were of varying lengths of intensity. And it's because we just have that, we just become wired to the easiest fix is to go harder, longer, or more intense. Because if I have to ask that much out of me, then surely I'll be able to rise to it, because I can't just get off my, it's like going back to like, what's the point of a 20-minute run? If you can't make time for the 20, you're going to make time for the 40, but people, it doesn't matter. We'll do 3 20 runs a week. That's an hour. It's 4 hours a month. Does that not seem like a big deal to you? But if you told somebody to go run for 4 hours, like, oh, I can do that. That's going to really change things. They would do it. If you break it up into 3 20s a week, 4 weeks out of the year, or 4 weeks out of the month to get in 4 hours, like, it doesn't really seem like much. It's like it's like people just don't take as seriously the stuff that adds up slowly versus the stuff that you think adds up immediately, but still won't yield nearly as big of an effect as just kind of slowly chipping away. Why are you running for 20 minutes? It's like, I'm running 20 minutes and you're not. So when the end of the year comes and I've done, 50 extra 20-minute runs that eventually worked up to measly 25-minute runs and measly 30-minute runs, because I made a choice to do them, and now I'm fit enough to where 3 extra easy 30-minute runs don't faze me while you're just getting out the door because only a 40-minute run is worth your time. Who's going to be in better shape? I'll take the one who got out for those measly 20-minute ones and worked their way up to the measly 30-minute ones.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny, man. Like, as somebody who grew up without computers, through college and all that sort of thing. Although I did take a class in college, it was computer science, and the whole class, like the whole semester, all the goal was how to log on to the computer. It was incredible. And then print out some kind of crazy 30-page sheet that had designs on it or something. I have no idea. But anyway, the ease that we have at our fingertips, and I think that's why I fight it sometimes, is, the whole situation was like, what was that movie called? Or who was it? And then you look around and everybody's on their phone just looking it up. Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but let me look.
Who is it?
So that kind of irritates me, because I think it's sort of, I don't even know if it seems to me like having a good memory and working your memory part of your brain would be valuable, because you can probably come up with it if you give it enough time, right? And I grew up like that. My roommates in college, we were all like trivia buffs, and
hit up the bar for trivia night.
We'd always sit around the house and go, who was that Clemson quarterback back in? And somebody's like, I can't. And we'd argue about it for about an hour, and then eventually, this was when ESPN was kind of new, and somehow we got the phone number to the assignment desk at ESPN, and we would call them if we couldn't come up with it after an hour or something, and so the guy would answer, "Hey fellas, what's up?" or whatever. And we'd always and they'd go out and find the answer for our trivia, and it would settle the night. But we'd spend time kind of trying to figure it out. And I think that's the learning process, and being mindful in the moment with the runs or whatever it is, and kind of figuring out what it means while you're out there training, instead of just blowing through to get a number into, Garmin Connect or something like that.
Just get it over with. I just wanted to get it over with. I just want to get it over with.
But be there. And it's like what you're saying about walking through the woods and flagging. I mean, just be where you're at with, that was some of those hiking up parts were amazing, because you kind of had to look around. You're like, man, this is wild over here.
Like you go in, like, we'll wrap it up with this, is like, we had somebody come in that's been to the lodge like 5 times. I think we all do this. We go to some place really, really frequently. We just don't pay a lot of attention. And you're like, has that always been there?
Yeah.
And you're like, it's just a reminder of how unaware I think we've become, and that how focused we are on like so many other different things that we might see something, we don't really acknowledge or know it because our brain and our mind is somewhere else, or we're really walking by someone we probably knew, but our head's staring at our phone and we didn't even know we passed them, that day. It's just like, has that always been there? You're like, yeah, that store's been there for the last 45 years. And, you just kind of walk by, walking out of Starbucks with your head down, checking your socials, drinking your mocha latte, and always missed it. It's like, and everyone needs to work on that, myself included. It's something that, again, permeates and influences everything that we do in life. And I do think that slowing down and being more intentional with everything that we do in life will actually end up getting us to places quicker than rushing through it just to rush through it, hoping that we get there quicker. Because that's rarely ever. Again, most dudes know this. you blaze through, not reading the directions on how to do something step by step because you think it's ridiculous. You get at your entertainment center set up, the TV goes on, that collapses. You're like, well, I probably should have done that right the first time. Or you got to undo and unscrew, the 98 little screws you got with the 1 centimeter Allen key from Target. Then you put them in, the wrong way, and you got to take, another 30 minutes. Like, do it right the first time. It might seem like it's slower, but it actually ends up being faster. Mm-hmm. Don't end up next year, late in the season, with a 2 centimeter Allen key and 40 screws to bolt into your race plan. Just get your pot out, clean it up, wax it.
Then you got to put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the junk drawer, and you don't even know what they're for.
You don't even
just don't want to throw them away.
You just don't. Just in case you might need them for the next project you don't follow through on. Or finish and put together. Like, where's the script? I don't know. Probably
10 years
need it
later. I'm pretty sure I got one. I think I threw it away last week.
Threw it away last week.
But you've had it for 10 years.
Yep. And we hope we have you for 10 years. Yeah, that's right. Hop to our website. Again, c26triathlon.com. It's a one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. You can check out our coaching options, club package, the club hub option, and Club Plus. Remove your stress and have someone else plan out your 2022 season. If you have any questions for Mike, he's available at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me directly, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Good to be back. See you.